Hello, 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 hello. It's Tuesday, and this is our third in this row of consistent lives. I said yesterday, I'm committed to this. So let's see how long this lasts. Maybe somebody can start taking bets and making whatever, some determination of whether or not this is going to last. So today I was talking about your purpose and your passion, and yesterday, I want to talk about Ikigai, not Ikigai, Ikigai. And it is a Japanese word. There was a gentleman who wrote a book about it years ago. And it's really an interesting concept because there is this place in Okinawa that is, oh gosh, what do they call those zones where people live to, they're octogenarians. They live to be over 100. So there's this one particular place over there in Okinawa that a gentleman went over there, this is years ago, to study what was going on, not to find the path to whatever you want to call it, longevity, the the fountain of youth. But here is the thing, is what he discovered, and this is what I love so much, is number one, these people that are practicing this ikigai, where they had four basic pillars of what keeps them with this longevity. And they didn't really even have to think about it at all. They were very clear about the four things that allowed them to stay in this feeling, this beingness. And so, just to give you a little bit of an overview of what the four pillars of Ikigai are, because I'm going to pick this up from when we were talking about yesterday, purpose and passion. Ikigai talks about this coming from your space of purpose and passion, not trying to force in a business from what you think it is, because that's what happens when I talk about purpose and passion from time to time. It's like, oh, what do I like to do? I'm just going to make a business out of that. So the four pillars of Ikigai are what you love. And this is really the essence that we have lost completely. We used to be in nature and be in tribes, and maybe we weren't necessarily doing things that we love, but we were living to the best of our potential. And so we've lost this idea of what is it that makes you super happy? What brings your soul to life? And so, what do you love? And I'm going to ask you these four questions because you can begin to put them in context with the questions that I asked yesterday about your blue sky visions and dreams and what you're not going to put up with anymore. So, what you love is that forefront of your passions and things that bring you joy. So maybe just take a minute, or when you're through listening to this live, or you're listening to it and you can put it on pause, write down those things that you love. So I'm going to just call out a family member of mine. She loves to craft. Oh my goodness gracious. And I hate that idea, right? So this is about what you love, what takes you into those places where you completely lose track of time. So I'm in love with ballroom dancing. I'm going to go take a martial arts class here locally. And I remember that I've taken them before and I really did love that. So I might be reigniting a passion. And the thing is that we do a lot of things that we absolutely don't love. And so we want to begin to incorporate, but also just to know what those things are. What do you love to do? Do you like to drive? I'm not a big fan of it. I know people that just love to take road trips and just drive everywhere. People love to garden. Some people love to clean house. I mean, it's really interesting how your particular desires and joyfulness are different than everybody else's. And I think I shared this yesterday, that you are unique and individualized expression of the one. And so the second intersection of ikigai is, what are you good at? What are your skills and your talents and your strengths? I often say this, that mine was just, I knew it as early as I can remember, that teaching was that thing for me. No matter what I've ever done, I always bring that component in, because that is a talent or a skill or a strength. I'm not sure, it's part of who I am, but you have something that you do better than anybody else. Maybe you read people. Maybe you are a fix-it person. My mom used to work for a gentleman in California. He was an assemblyman and a senator for the state. And this guy could make he was like Mr. MacGyver. He could make anything out of anything. You give him a string and some tape, and he's going to make, I don't know, something really crazy and magical. But that was a skill and a talent and a strength that he had. What are those things for you? How do you show up in the world with some amazing, unique skills, talents, and strengths? And then the third intersection of Ikigai is, what does the world need from you? Because you are, all of us are contributing into the world in some way. We are contributing ourselves. And I've said this so many times. We are a piece of this huge puzzle of the universe, and as you connect with yourself, you begin to understand how you contribute positively to others or society. You are a gift to the world. And we so often spend time not paying attention to who we are and what our gifts are. It's like you're going into a party holding on to a wrapped present, which is your gift to the world, and you never let anybody see it. You never let anybody unwrap it. So that's the third pillar intersection of Ikigai. And what then can you be paid for to earn a living that incorporates these other three intersection pillars? That is where the beauty of this is. So, as I begin to share with you how to build a business, right? Birth a business, it's important that we come from that space, because if you're just going to create something and go on, and find an influencer that says, "Hey, I can teach you how to make this much money off of internet." Da, 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 da. I don't even care what it is. You're not following your passion, and you may do that for a while, but it's never, especially from the feminine perspective, it's never going to fill that soul hole that we all have, that we're looking for how to do that. So I want to just take this ikigai a little bit farther. So iki is life in Japanese, and gai is your worth and your value. So this is really just the value that you have. Your life is, what value do you bring to the world? We are so busy comparing ourselves to somebody else and not knowing who we are. And it is so important to understand that you are the gift to the world. Every single person on this planet is. And we spend so much time comparing ourselves or shaming others or blaming others. And none of that allows you to actually uncover your own worth and value. And then our purpose, as I said, it's this motivating force, this meaning in your life. It isn't a grand goal, right? We've spent so much time being taught that goals mean something. And the idea here is just to embody life in this ikigai way, which is this longevity. We call longevity this length of life. But if you don't have longevity with vitality, it's just being in a sack of bones. I mean, to tell you, I have seen, because my mom was in um, a rehab facility because she fell last year, and that is not a version of living, is what I saw in there, with people shuffling around in their wheelchairs. And in the United States particularly, we have just lost this idea that the elderly in our community are the way showers. They are the wisdom bearers. And so what they discovered on in this society in Okinawa was that they were thriving. These elderly people, 70, 80, 90, 100 years old, were thriving. And it wasn't because they stopped working and did this thing called retire, which I'm very much about retiring. Oh my gosh, the whole notion is retire. And my grandmother died when she retired because she gave herself leukemia. I remember standing over her coughing and yelling at her, "How dare you leave like this?" Because I knew that she had just given up. And what happens is they discovered on this Okinawa that these individuals, these elder people, were they were in love with their life. That was the essence of it. They weren't sitting around waiting to die. They didn't retire. And they also weren't working for money. If they were working, which most of them were, but they were experiencing their joy with community, with their friends, with hobbies, with relationships, with children, with friends. They were in flow and they were working, which is, I believe everybody should be working. I hate that word though, because we need a better word. They were connecting with their community in a way uh, that responded with money, because that's really what work is. You do this and then you get that. But when you're in this flow, when you're achieving your ikigai, it is this beautiful sense of belonging, of being part of knowing that your value is what you're giving to the world. And how do you find it? It's those same ways that I just shared with those four intersections. And if you're completely unaware of who you are, that's where we begin to have a little bit of a problem. Was, I've done several podcast interviews for my podcast, The Radical Responsibility Revolution, and I invite you to check them out. There's so much wisdom in these, especially women that I'm interviewing. And my feeling is that the word of 2026 is curiosity. Without question, the people that I interview that have been on the planet, that have experienced the worst experiences in the world and come through it and are just these centered, amazing, incredible, loving individuals, is that they became curious, number one, about themselves and then about other people. And I was interviewing a woman today. She does human design. That I'm very excited for you to hear that one, because it's coming out probably next week. But she does human design, and it was just such a beautiful thing to think about. I don't know how much you know about human design, but it's based on your name, your birth date, your location of your birth. And it's a little bit like astrology, but it's very scientific, but it gives you a baseline of how you show up in the world. And I thought, this is really interesting, because we put everybody in the same bucket, and especially our children. So she was talking about it from the perspective of, well, look at your own human design, which I'm a manifestor generator. And I said, okay, that's great. And I said, but what about all these kids? We have decided that everybody is more or less. This is the world that we live in. This isn't just something that's decided in the last 5, 10 years, that you're in these boxes. I believe it started a lot with the Industrial Revolution, industrialization of our world. And so we put kids in schools, right? And they have to go there from this hour to that hour, and then they have to be still, and they have to follow these rules, when that isn't who we are as humans. We have different ways that we show up in the world. We have different ways that we experience life, and we show up and have times that we can, depends on what your human design is. Maybe you're one of those human designs where 2 or 3 hours of concentrated effort and then you need a very big break. But the thing is that we've not set up an environment for our children to learn what is their optimal way to learn. Everybody doesn't learn the same way. I don't know if you know that. I don't know if that's a revelation. I mean, I've known that for my whole life, but the fact is that if we don't start paying attention to the people that are in our lives and listen to them and understand them, Stephen Covey, Seven Habits, said, seek first to understand, then to be to understood. And if we don't understand the people that are around us, how they do life, like, everybody doesn't do life the way I do. Everybody doesn't do life the way you do. We have to begin to show up and experience people where they are, and then listen and say, why is that so important for you? Because if we don't begin to have dialogue, we will never breach this crevasse that we've created for ourselves. There's the them and the us, and that whole thing is crazy. If you do boil this down to, everything is one. We're all one with one another. We are all just individualized expressions, unique individualized expressions of the one. So then I'm looking at God every day. I'm looking at God in my eyes. I'm looking at God in your eyes. And when we break down these barriers, we can hear each other. And the fact is that if you want to build something, you want to birth something, we have to begin with that premise that I have to look inside of me, number one, to see how I show up in the world. How is my modality? So you can do an Enneagram, you can do human design, you can do Myers-Briggs, you can do astro. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Just start somewhere. Get on the path of being curious about yourself, because that's my word for the year. Two guests in the last 2 days. I have a question that I ask at the end of all my podcasts, and both of them, they didn't know, and I didn't know, and the question isn't exactly the same. But their answer, both of them, was because I asked them to go to their future self and intuitively download something, and the word was kindness. That be kind to yourself and be kind to others. And I thought that is such a beautiful, beautiful thing to recognize that, as far as I'm concerned, God, the universe is talking to me to hear, to share that this kindness concept is we're not being kind. We're just not. She was a human behavior scientist. I'm sure I'm making that wrong, but she studied human behavior and she incorporated it in corporate America. And one of the things that was so interesting is that I said, well, why do we act like that? Why are we so pushing other people away and making the this and them and us and them and all of that? And she says, well, because that was how we started out in our communities, right? When prehistoric days. And it's, you got to stay inside the cave when the lion, the saber-toothed tiger is outside, right? To go outside takes you apart and potentially keeps you excluded or unsafe. So if you think about that from the generational component, it makes perfect sense that we feel like we have to be in this mob mentality all the time, and it's scary to step out and say I'm unique. So here's the dichotomy: you're a unique expression of the one, and yet we've set up these patterns for us to all be the same. Ugh, sorry, we aren't the same. We're unique individualized expressions. But yet we do this thing, we contort ourselves into being the sameness to fit in with whatever this version, this tribe is. So, fly your freak flag, whatever that is, and be that unique expression of whoever it is that you are on this planet. Because that is how you will begin to break out of this mold, which I believe that this industrialization that we started the beginning of the 1900s of doing time cards and clocking in and taking away our value basing on time for dollars. I teach abundance, so you can pretty much pick up any of my readings or teachings, but the fact is that we've taught the society, especially in the Western hemisphere, that it's all about going to a job so that you can have what Maslow says are the hierarchy of desires. And the fact is that the base one is just food, housing and shelter, and the top one is enlightenment. But we never get out of here because we're just in this little rat race. And the only way to break out of the job, the just over broke, out of that first level of those hierarchy of needs, which is just food, shelter, is to begin to create your own business. I don't care what you call it. You can be a founder, an entrepreneur, a business leader, a side hustle. I don't care. There's all kinds of words, and we get so hung up with language, but you have to begin to say to yourself, I am in charge with the co creation, which is this oneness of expanding what I'm able to receive. And I want to make a different distinction between receive and accumulate, because we don't need to accumulate anything, right? This is the problem with the idea of retirement, which I just said at the beginning of this, is the silliness of all of that. It's like you got to work yourself to death so that you can spend time in that lower rung again of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You're going to stay at the bottom because you're only going to get this little tiny bit of money as you go forward, and you're going to run out before you die anyway, so you might as well go into a home and let some government take care of you. I think the whole thing, the whole concept is nutty. And if you just live in this ikigai, right, you're constantly re-energizing your flow. You're sending out your gift. Money and whatever gifts are coming back to you. This is the circulation of abundance. So it doesn't start with, oh, I want to get more money, which I know that people come to me for that very purpose. And then we talk about what is the freedom that you say you want in your life. And Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor and he was in a concentration camp. So I don't want to talk about freedom from anybody's perspective of what your version of that is. Freedom is what you allow yourself to believe. He wasn't free in his body because he was confined in a concentration camp, but his body and his mind and his soul were free. So when we begin to adopt this ikigai mentality, this livingness, this beingness, then life just begins to open up. And I promise you, you can be in a job. I was early in my life and I said, this is not for me because it's so constrictive. And we have to have certain people do jobs, but the thing is, and I remember this even as a young 20-year-old. I would always say I have an entrepreneurial mind working in an organization because I'm always thinking of how do we make this grow, how do we get it to be more to flourish more. So when I want what I want you to do is to begin to think about what those four concepts were that I shared, the intersections in the very beginning, and write them down. What are those things that you're really good at? What are those things that you really love? What is your gift to the world? And then how can we look at that and putting it in this idea of receiving back compensation for it? Because I hate the word monetize as well. Monetize means I've got to focus everything that I'm doing on this making of money. And it isn't the bottom line. I can tell you all about numbers and I will talk about those when we get into this further. But the fact is if you don't start with who you are first, you will just be constantly chasing that dollar. And you don't have to chase dollars. You don't have to chase clients. You be who it is that you are meant to be. What is your purpose here? And when you do that, I think I said this yesterday about the follow your bliss, the money will follow. Now, I know that's not what we've all been taught. So it's really jarring to your program up here that says, oh, she's crazy. Well, there's plenty of books out there that say that. So, I mean, I'm not making a new revelation, but I want you to begin to think and vision and download and intuit and ask yourself, why are you here? Why are you here? We are not here to be on a hamster wheel. You're here for a bigger purpose. And once you start down this path of understanding that, you will begin to see it clearer and clearer and clearer. And yeah, I'll give you some 3D objectives of how to do all of this. But at the end of the day, I'm probably going to blow most of them up because we can't keep going back to the old modeling. We have to start to be the newness. This is the first year of this 9-year cycle on numerology, which is just, another way of woo woo slash science. That this is the rebirthing. This is the rebirthing of you. So let's grab on to 2026 and rebirth whatever is bubbling up because you have so much potentiality and possibility in your little pinky that you're not even thinking about or knowing about. So I'm going to hopefully mine for some gold for you to begin to uncover the absolute beauty and essence of who you are. Ooh, that was a long one. All right. So I love that you showed up. Thank you so much. And I will see you tomorrow.